when I realized that I needed to sell myself as a commodity, it became very soul destroying for me, because for me, the work is so important. I don't like going and walking red carpets. I hate getting dressed up. I'm a jeans and t-shirt kind of gal. Like, I clean up kind of nice, but I'm not. I'm uncomfortable there. That feels very showy, and I get nervous. I actually don't like being in the spotlight. I want to be on set. I want to be on stage. I want to do the work. So I shied away from a lot of things, and like publicity events and whatever. But also, I was literally living my life in servitude. I was working 3 jobs. I was a waitress in 3 different cafes. I was dog walking. I was house sitting. I was doing so much, 6 days a week. And then I'd have to try and fit in these auditions and meetings, and it was an enormously stressful time. And I was in a very unhealthy, imbalanced relationship, and it's like when I had this Ayurvedic psychic reading, and this woman said, you basically took poison from the moment you landed, and you've just been slowly poisoned for 6 years. And I was like, what do? I don't live like this anymore. And she was like, I do see you going back.
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.
Welcome in the building, Shannon Esra. How are you doing?
I'm feeling a little nervous, to be honest with you.
You have no idea how excited I am. I have been like, for our Upside of Failure feature, it's always difficult to book actors because you never know your schedules in time.
We don't know them either.
Yes, no one knows your schedule.
Where am I? What is my name?
Yes, and then, but somehow, even though I know this, and we'll always have our wish list of actors that we want to get on, I always believe it happens at the time it's meant to happen.
The universe is very exacting on timing. I'm a big believer in that, totally. Yeah.
And had it happened prior, we wouldn't be able to have a shared river experience,
I
which
know,
I'm so
right?
happy about.
No, it was fantastic. I loved it.
But even before then, I wanted to share my very first memory of your work.
Oh, dear.
Which was your character. I probably have earlier memories, but a standout was me screaming at the TV when your character wouldn't listen. That girl, you were in a cult. You were in. Girl, focus.
Shame, peace, man, shame.
Focus, girl. What is happening? You're not seeing what's going on.
It was so great. I remember when we were, because we were shooting back at the SABC back in the day.
Yes, and this is for Isidingo.
And it was a very meaty 3-month job, and it was my first job out of varsity, and I would be in Melville with friends.
You were so young.
People were yelling at me.
What were they saying?
Get out of the cult. What are you doing? I'm like, hey, oh, yes. I don't write the show. I just say the lines.
I absolutely love it, but I laughed my head off because, oh my gosh, it's so weird. I'm having this moment of I found out when I was going to do Isidingo, because by then we knew it was closing down and my character was going to die for me, which was perfect. But then I was we started having a conversation around actors that have come back more than once as different characters. We're like, Shannon Esra did. I'm like, she did, didn't she? How did they get away with it? How?
It was so random because I lived in Los Angeles for 6 years, and I'd returned back to South Africa, and I was really a broken human. I was so broken.
LA sounds breaking.
Yes, it was, but in the best way. I think that, it was like a breakthrough stuff for me personally, in many, many regards. But it was so interesting because I'd gotten back on the 4th of September, and my agent, and I was with my parents in KZN for a bit of a time, and then I shot up to Joburg to kind of come and see my friends and my family here, and my agent was like, come into the office, I've had an interesting request. And I was like, well, I'm such a failure, I'm never going to work again, I've lost all my talent, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I sat down, and Wesley looked at me, my agent at the time, and he said, so we've had an interesting request for you to be on Isidingo. When last were you on the show? So I was like, 10 years ago. I said, are they bringing Yvette back? Like, what? He said, no, it's for a new character. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I think enough time's passed. I've grown
Yes.
up enough. I said, yeah, so when do I have to audition? And he said, no, you're not auditioning. It's been
They
offered
just-
to you.
yeah.
And I was like, what's that now?
Oh, because it doesn't happen often.
I mean, and after like 6 years of like eating dirt, I was like, oh my God, I don't believe it. I like went into complete imposter syndrome. And then 4 weeks later, I was filming with them. And then there was like, I don't know, I think 2 years with Angelique Scott. So
Isn't it weird
saved me, man.
how many people have this belief that you get called all the time for roles? Because there are some of the gigs that people think I got called for because like you seem like such a natural fit. I may have had to audition for. And then others, for me, the funniest ones is not the ones, oh, I got called, haha, or oh, I auditioned 1,000,000 times more than you think.
Yeah.
The ones where the writer says, we want someone like Relebogile Mabotja. And
You're
you
like, why
go
don't
to
you just phone
and
me?
then you're in the queue with the
Although I
people.
must say it's a lovely compliment, but at the same time, it's like, why don't you have the real thing?
And then you're there auditioning with other people who are auditioning to be like
I must say, it has only happened twice to me, and it happened with Angelique, and then it happened with Sandra Stein. Sandra was written for me, so I mean, like, I'm eternally grateful to Shauna Ferguson. Like,
Yes.
I mean, you know.
But I mean, you guys had a relationship from long ago.
So
working
that is
together.
that's where it blossomed, because we were lovers on Essie Dingo. He played
Yes.
Tyson, and then they had this love affair. Yeah.
I forgot about.
And we had a wonderful connection and a wonderful we spent a lot of time together, you know, running lines, talking about family and passion, and I don't know, like there was just a serious connect. And then I was fired from Essie Dingo. A whole bunch of us were fired, and I don't know, I think there was like almost 2 years where I did not work at all.
Actually,
Some dry times. It was not fun. And I got this call from Shauna the one day, and he said, "So Shan," he said, "remember I told you that I'm gonna write you something. I want you to play a baddie." And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, she's not quite a baddie, but there's a lawyer on the Queen, and we only reference the lawyer as Stein, and he's male." He says, "And I've developed his daughter for you. And she's a mix between Alicia Florrick and Olivia Pope. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Would I be interested?" I said, "Yeah, when do I start? Like, let's do this."
I mean, I'll just stick with my beans.
But
it's
I
okay.
had no, I you know, often when I bump into Connie, I can't help but say to her, like, do you think Shauna knew that Sandra would be so loved by the fan base? Because, you know, I mean, she just is the gift that keeps on giving,
Right?
you know? So I'm just eternally grateful to
I wanna.
Sandra and Shauna and all the producers who have asked her to come and be on the various shows, because it's been very exciting to be with a character so long on all these different.
And it doesn't happen often. It's very the cross-platforming thing.
It's very, very rare. I mean,
Very rare.
she's been on 5 different shows.
Wait, no. Why did I count 4? What's the count?
She was
the
on
shows?
The Throne as well.
Yes,
The Throne,
the river.
Queen, The River, Legacy, and Gomorrah.
Oh, yes. My goodness, that is almost
I have
like
spent so many hours in courtrooms. It is unreal.
And you should probably meet our EWN reporter Khomotso Modise, who spends hours and hours in courtrooms because
So uncomfortable in there. My God, they really need to sort out those benches.
that are very
So uncomfortable. All those chairs from like 1935 are terrible.
Please tell me about when you were younger. You know, were you a kid who always knew that you're drawn to being artistic and creative?
Oh no, it was impossible.
As in, that's the only place that you could be bearable is now in. Okay, let's
You
direct
couldn't even
this.
find me inside. I was outside being a monkey in a tree. You know, I'm not saying I had like an identity crisis. I did not, but I was obsessed with the film Tarzan, Lord of Greystoke, and I'm a big lover of animals. So I'm quite a good mimic. If I spend time with something, I'll get I'm obsessive about things, right?
Yes.
And so I would really only speak monkey. I think I drove my mother absolutely up the wall from age 6. And for birthday presents, I would only want skipping ropes so that I could tie them to the branches of my tree so I could swing from my vines. The world of my imaginarium was very rich. And if I wasn't there, then I was drawing or painting or singing and dancing. So I was always incredibly active. But it was, I think my father longed deeply for me to go into medicine because I love biology, but I hate to study. And it's ironic because we spend our lives learning lines.
Right.
And that is the biggest fear of like losing lines, the anxiety I can vomit. So it was always, from the age of 4, there was definitely... It was there. And it really, I think I really shocked my parents when I finished my first film and I came home because I was applying to Rhodes University and I was going to go and I was applying to Wits and wherever, and I was applying to do OT and physio, and because my maths marks, while I did pass in higher grade, they would not have been good enough to get.
If you were in Angie's time, though, you might have.
Maybe. And then I finished this film and I just said, that's it. This is what I want to do.
Wow.
And it was met with some unhappiness, a lot of unhappiness. But my drama teacher in high school, she would just give me tea and tissues as I cried in the staff room, and we worked through it.
And would you say at that time an idea had already formulated in your mind about what failure is? Because if you knew that your parents have a certain dream for you, but your body and your being is feeling like something else, did you have formulated in your mind that like, if I actually want to pursue or even just do things that are not matching with what they want for me, I'm a disappointment in their eyes?
So, my parents, probably in the lot, because like I said, I'm obsessed about things and I'm very passionate and I'm very committed. So I think once my father and my mother saw the absolute determination in my eyes, and the speech was basically, if I don't do it, I will die. Like there's no like half measure here. My dad was like, come on, doll, you got to have a backup, my doll. And I'm like, I don't want a backup. I don't want a backup. This is what I need to do. It's like breathing. If I don't do it, I'll die. It's very dramatic, but that was how it was. The failures and the setbacks, like I said earlier, like the universe is very exacting and we have to fail. We have to fail in order to learn, in order to carve out who we are. There still is no backup. Yes, I do have certain things in place. I have my own production company. I'm very interested in producing and developing stories. I've got 2 shows that we're working on very intensely. One is very much pitch ready and we're going to market soon. The other is still in early stages. My partner he's also an actor. As actors, there's not a lot of power in being an actor. And by power, I mean being in control of your own life. So what was very important to me was to have a sense of longevity and security. And look, it's still early days. Our company's been up and running for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
We've been developing the show, this one show. I started developing in 2015 and I did it on my own for a few years, and then I wanted to rip out my eyeballs. So I was searching for someone, and my business partner, Robert Hobbs, was and is just, he is the yin to my yang creatively. He's his producerial brain, the way that he sees the business side of it is not something that I possess because I'm deeply creative. Don't give me an Excel spreadsheet, I'll cry. That's the backup. It's to continually be telling the stories. For me, it's about, it's the art. We've been telling stories since the beginning of time. We've been sitting around fires. Gazing at stars, telling stories, and that's what I want to do. Whether I'm facilitating a story or whether I'm in the story, it's just incredibly important that that's what I do. That's the inspiration. That's the passion. And then also, I love talent. I love talent, and I love smart people. So to be able to nurture and cultivate talent and allow a platform for that is immensely important to me. I don't, fame is not something that's ever interested in me. In fact, it's something that it scares me because there's certain parts of my life that I have to adjust because of it. There are wonderful things about it.
You've handled it so well, though, in the sense that, when we look at Hollywood, for example, I remember growing up and I'd be like, J-Lo's love life, for example, was all over the place. But you get a Denzel and we know nothing. So I do feel that when an actor or a public figure chooses to keep certain things to themselves, they can. And I think you've done that quite well. Nobody really knows much about you on that level.
Yeah,
and
for
what I
me,
love
it's the
about
work
it,
that's important.
Yes, we focus
I want
on
my
the work.
I want my work to speak the volumes. I want, also, and I don't know, and maybe this is just the way that I've I don't know. Maybe it's the way that I've convinced myself to do it, but I don't think so. Like, I feel like the more that people know who I am personally, the harder the characters are to accept. Because it's not about me. I'm a blank canvas. There is nothing quite as, it's a very intimate process to lose yourself in order to make someone else come alive. And the less self there is to lose for a public, the easier it is to give breath to this character. So, and I don't know, I quite like, I like Enigma.
I think it works beautifully for you. And from what I read from your energies as well, is that your energies are sensitive. If the focus shifted to other things, you might not show up on set the same as what you did before.
So it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that and that's your observation. And I don't think that you're wrong. With Lioness season 2, it was a very, very, very difficult shooting process for me because I had a lot going on in my personal life. And I was very scared of how it was going to show up on screen. I'm happy to say that when I watch the work, I'm not disappointed. It was like a spanner that tightened a bit here and loosened a bit here. And I am sensitive, and I think people also think that I'm very hard and very tough, and
Who thinks you're hard and tough?
Well, you see, because of the characters, the women that I play, and look, and I'm a very strong woman. I have strong opinions. Some very strong opinions that aren't possibly very palatable, but I like who I am, and it's taken me so long to like who I am. So, but I think as actors we use everything. You have to. Everything is a tool. Every influence, everything's a tool, and you just got to use it. When I watch young actors who something will happen and they'll get freaked out and they're like, I can't work, and I'm like, use it. Use it. Let this work for you. Don't push it away. Let it in.
Do you ever have moments where, like what you say, you were battling certain things while you were shooting season 2, right?
Yeah.
So there's the part of you feeling like, ooh, I was so in there. And then the part of you watching yourself saying, I'm not happy with that performance. Do you ever have moments, and I don't know how you deal with it, but I have had moments where the way I felt on the day sticks with me, even if everybody's like, that was such a great performance. I'm like, I don't know why I can't stand by it because I felt terrible on the day. So in my brain, I think it could have been better had I felt differently. Do you sometimes have those moments where you hold on to what the moment was for you?
You know what's so interesting is that I think I was so deeply traumatized in those moments that I actually don't even have memory of shooting the day.
What?
Yeah. So to have watched certain scenes where I knew I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this day. But what was amazing is that my makeup artist and very dear friend, Amy Sprawson, I call her my binky because I could literally just go and fall apart with her, and she'd give me the space to just let go of what it is that I needed to let go of. And then it was like something just completely turned off. I don't remember then. After we wrapped on Lioness, I have 2 months that I have no memory.
Was what you are going through at the time something you've already overcome and
absolutely.
are able to talk about yet?
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. I just therapy is a wonderful thing, and I think I think in general human beings should be in therapy when things are hard. It's a wonderful way to reframe. unfortunately, I had to discontinue. You can't go to therapy while you're shooting. You're the first in and you're the last out. It's just not possible.
Especially as a lead.
It's not possible. It's just not conceivable because you are literally working 6 days a week, 12-hour days. And I had 4 days off in the 58 days we had shooting. So, I had kind of like gone into a denial aspect of being very fun. I was like, no, everything's fine. I've got this. I've had enough therapy throughout my life to manage this, but I wasn't managing. And have I overcome it? Yes, I think there's so much of me that has overcome it. But I think, the biggest takeaway is what we do is very, very challenging. And it's also very, very challenging when you're in a relationship with someone and you need someone incredibly open-minded with a very big heart and an open heart and someone who really patient and understanding. And you need someone who really wants the best for you. What's the thing that sets you on fire? You want people around you who are going to continually try and fan those embers. And I had someone who was continually just throwing sand on my fire, and there was a lot of animosity, and it was incredibly challenging. And I think it's you need supportive people around you, because what you're also doing is, I'm not a method actor. I don't stay in character, but something definitely changes during that period. I mean, even when I was shooting on Do Your Worst, I became a complete ditz because Sandra was always stoned. So, I mean, I was driving into orange beacons. I mean, I had like parts of my brain just like switched off and other parts turned on. And no, I mean, I'm grateful. I'm grateful it was as hard as it was, because I wouldn't be where I am now. So again, we're talking about the upside of failure. It was for all intents and purposes, it was a failure, but it's also a great success because I come out the other side and I'm better.
And I think the way you explain it, and which is the most difficult part of our job, I had a very hard morning yesterday. My kid got hurt, but he was hurt the day before, and then we found out the next day that it was actually serious. So I was like sobbing driving to radio.
Oh, no.
But now here's the point I'm trying to make is what people don't realize, the taxing part of the work that we do, that our showing up requires all parts of us, versus if I was working in a call center, even then they need to smile and be happy. But there's jobs you can hide behind, right? And my aunt called me after. She's like, "You sounded fine on air." I said, "Do you know the psyching up I had to do?"
It's called sublimation, and it's a real skill. Are you okay? Is he okay?
Oh, yes. He's fine. He's good. It was just the mommy moment of like, after a crisis happens and the adrenaline now goes out your system.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're like,
and then
now you fall apart.
Exactly.
That's what was happening.
I'm sorry.
But now I want to know.
I have such tremendous respect for mothers. My God. I don't know how you guys do it.
How do you psych yourself up? Because if you're going through a traumatic experience, you need to show up on set, and you're not just showing up as your character. You're showing up as Shannon, the actor, the professional who also has to greet everybody on set. You're showing up two ways. What do you do for yourself? I play specific playlists on in the car, and I psych myself up. And before, when I'm with the team, I literally physically smile before the clock goes and get ready. So what is your thing to psych you up to show up?
It depends on the day. It depends on the demand of the day. If I've got a heavy emotional day, if I'm going through the most, I'm going to use it. And I'm a mellophile. I love music. And I just load on the sad music. I just load it up. I just weigh it all down until I'm ready to go. And when it's action, then I can release. It's kind of like a dam bursting, right?
Yeah.
Although that's not really what we want to do as actors. We're not like, oh, look, I'm showing my emotion. The whole point is that human beings, when we're sad, you did it on it. We cover it up. We stifle it down. We push it down. When people are like, how do you cry on screen? You're like, no. It's how do you not cry? It's you don't want to cry. Nobody outwardly cries proudly in public. We're trying to make it stop. So, but if I need to like psych myself up, to be honest, I'm very much in my body. So I start jumping around. I jump, I'll run, I start getting movement. I like a certain freneticism. And then it's like, does that make sense? Did
Completely.
I even finish the sentence?
It completely makes sense because it is a all-encompassing thing.
Completely.
All encompassing. And hence, one thing I'm appreciate about the theatre experience, and we'll talk about that when we come back from the news, is the breathing exercises.
Oh, yeah.
All of the
But
breathing
everything's in
exercises.
breath. It carries us through everything.
Everything's
Without
in
breath,
breath.
we are not even, we're not here. We die.
How has breathing helped you? How?
You know, a baby cannot cry without breath. And if you think about what happens to your body when you're panicked, it's shallow breathing that follows. And what it is we got to take a deep breath to root ourselves back to reality. I mean, there's also breathing exercises that if you feel that you're, if you start having panic attack, it reactivates part of the nervous system. You have to. Breath is life. Really is. It's everything. It's to just find that moment. We often don't breathe properly.
Literally the case. But people who are breathing properly and showing you some love, Tembega says, the lioness goddess in studio. Shannon, you nailed the role. I loved seeing great acting on South African screens. Another one says, yes, I absolutely love her. Where can I watch Lioness Season 2 is what they're asking.
So Lioness, thank you very much, everybody. Lioness Season 2 is on catch-up on Mnet. We're waiting for it to come onto Showmax. I'm still not sure when that's going to happen.
Yes. All right. And then Penny from Midrand says, Relebogile Shannon Esra, a.k.a. Steiner or Stein. What a talent. Relebogile, this is from Ntutu in 4 ways. You have my only Caucasian crush.
Honey.
I love you saying my only Caucasian crush.
Thank you.
And then on Twitter, or X rather, Olebogeng says, you have one of my favorite actresses in studio. I started following Shannon Esra when she was still on Isidingo, and the first time I saw her there, I thought she was an American actress. Loved her on The Queen as well. She made a very convincing lawyer. Doomza says, I had to Google Shannon Esra only to discover it's this gorgeous, gorgeous actress I love so much. Such a versatile lady of her craft. This lady truly has range. Speaking of range, what genre have you not done that you'd like to do?
I mean, look, I've never done horror. I don't think I'd leap at it.
You would kill horror. You would be good at it.
Would just, again, it always comes down to the script and who's directing.
Yes.
Always, because a great story can be in the wrong hands, and then it loses its luster. I'd like to also do more comedy. I'd love to do more comedy. The thing is, for me, I'm not, and I've never really done sci-fi. But the genre is unimportant to me. It's the story. Do I resonate with the character? Is it someone that, is it a character that makes me want to, it's the sensation I get where I am so terrified and so exhilarated at the same time. It's like in equal measure. The minute that I feel that's when when I have to do it. Otherwise, it's a bit like, the genre doesn't matter to me.
I got you.
I just love what I do.
Talk to me about what got you wanting to go to LA, and what happened there that was so tough. And I mean, every South African actress who heads out to LA has such a different story, and people will always assume, though, it was the same thing that happened. So what happened in your case?
I think as a small child and as a teenager, I had built up this ideal of what Hollywood was, and it seemed to be like that was the way to really, you were only successful if you were a Hollywood actress. So that was a faulty belief that I had developed and that I spent a lot of time in. What happened for me, when I got there.
Wait, what was the reason you decided? So it was something that you had to
go.
Okay.
I had to. it was this, Shannon, are you going to regret doing it or are you going to regret not doing it? And I knew that if I didn't do it, that I wouldn't be able to live with myself. Again, I'm very dramatic. So
I love it for you.
yeah, so I went, and I was headhunted by a manager. She had seen me on a show called Life is Wild, and she reached out to one of the actresses that she was representing at the time, Stephanie Nisnik, who's unfortunately passed in the last couple of years. And Stephanie, she assisted me. So I went at the end of 2008. I went to meet with Anne Woodward. I went to take certain meetings, and then in the 2009, I moved there. I hadn't sorted out any of my paperwork, not really. So paperwork was a thing. Paperwork was a thing. And also
For you to be able to work.
So I had an O1 visa.
Yes.
But this O1 visa, unfortunately, it's not an umbrella visa. So there were certain companies and certain studios that they don't really accept that visa. It needs to be more extensive. And I was always, and you have to have an O1 for 3 years. And this particular visa, it allows you to be applicable for a green card or what's called the EB1. So once I could go for the EB1, we did. But I was wrapped up in so much red tape. And so I would go for meetings with casting directors. I would go to the studios and take these big meetings with ABC, and I would go for these big auditions where it's like, okay, well, they're gonna go with Jessica Alba, and I'm like, okay, all right, she's a star. But what had happened in the 2009 when I got there, they were in the midst of a massive actor strike. SAG-AFTRA.
Yes.
It was SAG, and it was after they were separate. And there was a lot of writer strikes, and
unlike here, it's not like when the Generations actors said we're going on. Life goes on.
No, it literally stops. It ends. They pick it, and that's the
Yes,
end.
Everything stops.
So I had come in, and I always joked with my manager. She's like, I don't know why this isn't working for you. And I'd be like, I was ready for Hollywood, but Hollywood wasn't ready for me. But it worked out exactly the way that it needed to. But what was happening was movie actors had started to do television. And when firstly, I'm a foreigner. My paperwork's not entirely in order. In some ways, I'm hireable. In other ways, I'm not. And I also think, my manager often, she would say, people are just confused by you. They don't know what to do with you. Because a lot of the feedback was she's a spark plug.
What does that mean?
She's a firecracker. She's got fire. But I look how I look, and I'm funny and I'm smart, and so they were like, we don't know where to put her. Let us know when she books something so we can fit her into what.
Isn't it sad that that's how it works though? Because the boxing thing, I get why people do it, so it's easy when certain processes happen to know who you'll go to. And like you say, there was a time where Hollywood film stars were not in series, and then it became a thing that now they're all in series. But it was easy to say, that's your rom-com girl, that's your action guy.
Exactly.
Liam Neeson is the action.
Typecasting is a real thing. And so when I realized that I needed to sell myself as a commodity, it became very soul destroying for me, because for me, the work is so important. I don't like going and walking red carpets. I hate getting dressed up. I'm a jeans and t-shirt kind of gal. Like, I clean up kind of nice, but I'm not. I'm uncomfortable there. That feels very showy, and I get nervous. I actually don't like being in the spotlight. I want to be on set. I want to be on stage. I want to do the work. So I shied away from a lot of things, and like publicity events and whatever, but also I was literally living my life in servitude. I was working 3 jobs. I was a waitress in 3 different cafes. I was dog walking. I was house sitting. I was doing so much, 6 days a week. And then I'd have to try and fit in these auditions and meetings. And it was an enormously stressful time. And I was in a very unhealthy, imbalanced relationship. And it's like when I had this Ayurvedic psychic reading, and this woman said, you basically took poison from the moment you landed, and you've just been slowly poisoned for 6 years. And I was like, what do? I don't live like this anymore. And And she was like, I do see you going back. And I'll tell you that the fight I had with my own ego and my own pride to come back. I mean, I had literally had conversations with both my parents, and they can attest to it, where I was like, the only way I'm coming back is in a body bag.
I knew you were going to say that.
And my mother's like, come on, doll. And my father's like, no, Diane, come on. She's being serious. And I was serious.
That.
I was deeply.
But can I say something?
It felt like the biggest failure.
The reason I love that you were on that level is because that is the true. I always say to people when they're like, why are you still trying if you see this thing's not working? Because if I'm going to walk away, I want to walk away knowing I did everything.
Yeah.
So for me, the body bag really represents you depleted every single option and resource available to you.
I did.
So you can come back comfortably knowing there's not a, but what if?
When the shift happened, it was quite extraordinary because I'd become involved with the Santa Monica Repertory Company, and I was starting to do a lot of theatre, and we'd just come off a run of doing Paula Vogel's So You Think You Can Drive. And, How I Learned to Drive.
Yes.
And then we were doing other plays, and I'd left the Kabbalah Center where I was a copywriter, and I'd gotten into sales, and I became a produce specialist, and I started to become a lot of many, many things, and I'd only ever defined myself as an actor. So I learned that I was a little bit more than what I had boxed my own self in, right? But I remember a friend of mine said to me, just before I was leaving this position as a ghostwriter and copywriter at the center, she said, why don't you just write your own stuff? You're a good writer. Why don't you just start writing your own stuff and just do it here? And I said, I don't belong here. And I remember as it came, it's like the words, they fell out of my mouth. And I remember I caught myself, and she looked at me and she went, Shan, did you hear what you just said? And I went, oh my, Holly, what did I just say? And she's like, do you think that you're starting to shift? And I was like, I clearly am, because I haven't allowed myself to even consider. But in that moment, I was like, if I'm going to do anything, I want to go home. I want to go home to do it.
And I think...
And it still took me another 18 months, by the way. So I basically had to bury my ego in the desert, this huge excavation, and leave it there.
Some people are reminiscing about Isidingo. I'm wondering, does your heart ever get sore where these places you were at, the shows, announce that they're shutting down? Do you feel some kind of way about it?
Oh, yes, of course, because it's Isidingo especially, it was an institution. I grew up watching it.
Right.
But you know what the thing is that everything must come to an end. Nothing lasts forever. Nothing's permanent. Nothing belongs to us. Everything's on loan, but yeah, of course, it's hard to let things go. But,
what has been your really favorite part? We were chatting earlier about failures. What has been rather the hardest part about success? Because there's the fear of failing, and then there's the fear of, what if this actually works out?
I think the fear of success is that it won't measure up to your expectation. So I think expectation is a very dangerous thing. I think perfectionism is a very dangerous thing. I don't know. That's such a good question. I don't think that I guess I just always want to show up in the most authentic way. I would never want to become a watered down version of myself. I feel like that would be a real sellout to success. But again, it's how do we measure success? Because for me, if I measure success, it's by the amount of peace I have. And I think peace comes from inspiration. I think look, we all need to be financially secure, but I'm not someone who's I'm not driven by money. I'm driven by working, and I think that's why as actors we always return back to the theatre.
Right.
Because there is theatre's the actor's medium. That's where you get to expose every inch of your own humanity in the presence of an audience, and it is It is a beautiful, intimate connection. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. I mean, I'm currently rehearsing a one-woman show, and it makes me want to vomit all the time. There's nowhere to hide. It's just...
And no day's the same.
Well, but that's the beauty. But
Right.
also, you see, but the way that no take is the same
Yes.
either. So I think the most dangerous thing as an actor to do is to try and recreate what you just did. You can't. Even this moment now, it's gone. Like I said,
Can't
nothing's
go back.
permanent. You got to, like, everything is different. And it was interesting because 2 weeks ago I was rehearsing with Janet, and my director was my high school drama teacher.
What? What are the chances?
And it's been quite wonderful because it feels like I'm coming home to something. It's like this beautiful circle. And she said to me the other day, we were doing a rehearsal, and she said, you just bring something different every time. She's like, I always wonder what's going on in your day that makes you say the line that way. And I'm like, I don't know. But whatever has happened, it is certainly informing the way that I'm interpreting things or the way that I'm feeling things. But it's, I don't know, what scares me about success. I guess, you know what? I don't want obstructions. Sometimes I feel like you get, I guess jealousy might scare me, or like envious spoilers, or evil eye, or someone will want to take it from you, or but for me, I don't know. I believe there's enough for everybody. I don't know.
The pie and the cake.
Failure
are big
scares
enough.
me way more because that's where the body bag pulls in.
So, what would you like to leave the listeners with that you have learned about failure?
It's so necessary. And you know what? While things don't work out the way that we initially want them to, they work out exactly the way that we need them to. And when we are our most uncomfortable, that is when we grow. When we are in the dark, and that's where it happens. That's where the magic happens. It's when you feel like all hope is lost and there's just not an ounce of anything in sight, and you're so uncomfortable. That's the moment. That's the moment to hold on.
Shannon Esra, this was perfect timing and even better than I imagined. Thank you for your vulnerability and for coming through.
Thank you.
So appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.